Welcome to another Regarding 365 discussion panel debates. Today we're going to be talking about the custom learning portal and some learning resources that we use within our organisations. We want to try and provide some tips and some ideas and some thoughts about helping your organisation learn how to use Microsoft 365. We're in a lovely treehouse, OA1, and we're trying to bring the environment to you. We're going to start just by introducing ourselves, and then we'll get into the typical format that we follow, where everyone has about 3 minutes to say their piece, and then we get into some cross-discussion and potentially some debate. So we'll start off with you, Mr. Loryan.
Hi, I'm Loryan Strant from Down Under in Australia, and I've been working with Office 365 for many, many years, so it's been interesting to see the changes in learning over time. I'm going to take my 3 minute...
No, it's just the introduction.
I know.
Oh, perfect. I'm Sarah Haase from Twin Cities, Minnesota, focused on user adoption, so I'm going to love the topic today.
All right. Yeah, I'm Darrell from New Zealand, also focused on user adoption.
Tracy from the Schyff, all the way from South Africa. Microsoft's biggest fan. Mic drop.
Paul Swider, currently based out of Boston, and my focus is enterprise integration enablement.
Jethro Seghers, and I think I traveled the furthest, literally from down the road in Redmond, and I focus on education and everything that is attached to that.
Hi, I'm Stephen Collier. I'm a solution architect from London in the UK, where I help clients with all elements of Office 365 implementation.
Hi, I'm Simon Denton, also from the UK, but I'm from the better bit, which is in Birmingham. Yeah. I'm an Office 365 architect, and really I started this journey only 4 or 5 years ago, so this is really an important step I'm seeing learning coming forward.
Hello, I am Daniel Glenn, and I feel like I am from down under. From the Middle Tennessee, Nashville area. I am a solutions guy. Architect seems too formal, but
you get hired, Chef. Right?
Yes, that's right. And really, the way that plays into this of what I do is creating solutions is great, but then how do users keep learning and using those solutions when it's using out of the box functionality? So.
So I think my perspective on the custom learning portal is that I think it's great to have something inside of a customer tenant, because right now for learning they need to generally use external resources or build something themselves. So they can use third-party solutions like Quick Help, or they can pay for a partner to actually build something custom for them. So it's great to have something like this from Microsoft that actually almost harks back to I think it was the SharePoint 2010 Learning Hub was a solution you could pre-install. I think I just got some kudos from the SharePoint people. So I think what's important though is while this content is fantastic, it can't just be thrust upon end users. There actually needs to be a strategy behind it, looking at, well, how do people want to learn? How do they best learn? Because some people, you can give them all the content and assistance they want, they just want somebody in their face in a meeting room showing them how to use Outlook. Mm-hmm. So it's important to make sure that these tools in some instances exist to supplement that, but in some instances will be used as the primary learning mechanism. So I think that's the thing, is these tools are great. I think I guess my point is that they shouldn't just be, as I said, thrust upon people. There should be a structure, a strategy behind it. Need to actually do things like cultural workshops and understand how do people learn best. And then match that also not just with the tool usage and see how many videos people are using, but also then match that with data from the graph about actual usage. So if you can say, this person's saying, I don't know how to use Planner, it's too tough. And you can see from the usage data, they're not using Planner. You can also see, well, actually, they're also haven't done the video content. So why don't we tailor something to it? So it's important to have, I think, an all-encompassing solution, not just say, hey, custom learning portal or quick help or custom solution, done, problem fixed, you've learnt. So my 2 cents. I give the rest of my time to the room.
All right, so after Loryan said everything and perfectly, I'm going to try and follow that. So the great thing about it, I think the custom learning portal is I think it gives organizations really a running start to be able to have something that they can see and visualize how some of this learning content can come together. I often think that's the most difficult part, is knowing and having a vision for what a site could look like and where you can go. It's also great for those companies that are not rolling out a big bang of Office 365 all at once, because you can customize which products are displaying, which products display and which products don't. I know that's always a key problem in organizations that I work with. If they don't have all the features enabled, they have things turned off, anything that you buy off the shelf in terms of training opportunities, then suddenly you're showing users things that they don't have access to, and there's almost no better way to alienate your users than to tell them about a great feature that they want and then tell them that they can't have it. I would recommend turning on that custom learning portal, thinking about your user personas, so who the key users are that you need to talk to on an ongoing basis, and making sure that you have a lens and a view for each of them to consume the content, that you're rounding it out, as Loryan said, with other types of content, other types of learning opportunities, and get started with it early during your pilot process. We were talking about Office 365 pilots just before we started recording, and I think it's an important thing to keep in mind that your pilot group of users can give you feedback on the custom learning portal, can help you tweak it, make sure that the design is just right, so make sure that you leverage those folks as an opportunity to be able to really finesse it to get it to the point where it's ready to go to the masses.
So hi everyone, and I think how cool this is of Microsoft to do this for us and to put this together. I've been building these training portals for years for customers, but I had to rebuild it every single time and then go update it when things change. But I've always tried to point to the Microsoft content as far as I could. And if I really think in this last year how much it's improved the Microsoft content, I'm really, really happy with what I'm seeing. I'll always be the one who fights for the underdog, so I'm going to have to put my punch in on this one, guys. Tools don't fix problems, it's people who fix problems. So this might be a great tool for us to use, but as Loryan said as well, just putting it down there is not going to get them to use it. If I just think, and at first I thought it was just a South African Afrikaans culture thing, but it's not. A lot of us work in transactional environments. I mean, us geeky, either learning, educational or IT people tend to learn different. We kind of help ourselves, we find a thing to help us with. But a lot of people out there that works in a specific job that they have to do every day and they've got tasks they have to complete, don't go and look for help. It doesn't work like that. They don't go and look for the URL to watch the video. They're not going to find it. So even though we're bringing it into the tenant, it's still a step outside of my comfort zone. And for years, people in corporate environments have been told, don't go there, don't go outside of, don't go outside of your finance system, don't go, why did you click that button, why did you break that? So people are afraid. It used to be part of our KPIs to not be curious and not to scratch around and not to help ourselves. So please remember that there's a big culture change around bringing tools like this into companies to help people. Because just putting the tool down, it might be a checklist for you. It's like that PDF that everyone downloads for change management, right? And governance, done. Nope, it's not. It's just a checkbox. So we have to change cultures as well. We have to get people to trust IT. It's like saying, let's put something on SharePoint to teach people to use SharePoint. So be very careful about how we get them into it, because they might be afraid of SharePoint, which means they're not going to use this learning tools. So you have to kind of bring it into the culture, make people less afraid of IT, make them see that they can kind of trust their own intuition and build up a self-esteem with people not being afraid to break things on their own PCs. Because again, for years in IT support, we've told people that they're breaking things and they shouldn't. So everyone's afraid. That's why people take 9 days before they log a call, and they haven't been able to do their work because they're afraid of looking stupid or not being adequate. So great tool, thanks Microsoft, but everyone please work on your culture. This is just a small little puzzle piece in the bigger piece to really achieve great successes, and I'm sure you're going to love it, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me to participate. So I'm very excited about the Learning Portal, and you guys, I love your comments. I don't know that I can add a bunch more, but I think one thing I might add is is just to talk a little bit more about the importance of the training during migration in terms of user adoption. From my experience early on in my career, I spent the first 10 years as a trainer, an MCT, and I found in my SharePoint deployments that the more time I spend up front getting everybody on the same page, no pun intended, it really assisted in the migration effort, because it allowed open communication where we all understood some of the concepts we were talking about. So when I talked to somebody in a department about a list, maybe their eyes would light up and say, oh, we could use that in this particular situation, and that would in turn drive adoption. I think this is even more important today because the product it just has so much depth, right? I call it the stack. I'm sorry, I come from a developer world, but if we look at the communication and collaboration stack now, it's not just SharePoint, right? We have Teams now. We have things like Power Apps that are driving user adoption into Office and into SharePoint, and so I think that makes the complexity. It makes the potential exists to make it that more complex. So this idea of having a portal that can enhance the learning across SharePoint and then across Teams and Power Apps and drive that adoption into SharePoint is a beautiful thing. So again, thank you very much for inviting me, and at my 2 cents. Thank you. Cheers.
The custom learning portal. There's a bunch of things that go into my mind when I saw that portal. A lot of good things. I think it's amazing what Microsoft is doing around making that content available, around providing a platform available. I also think there's a lot of risks. I think that when you allow things to be deployed that way, is that you have to be very careful not to give the impression that, hey, deploy it, it's done, right? For a lot of customers, and customers sometimes are really their own worst enemies. They see something from Microsoft and they think it's a total solution, even though that Microsoft never intended to be that way. I think having a full strategy, like Loryan already said, identifying how people learn, how people prefer to learn, adjust to that, but also taking the training materials that Microsoft provides and make it in function of your goals, right? How you want people to use the application or the platform, your own custom applications, your line of business applications that you want to have in Teams or Microsoft 365 is going to be crucial. So the only thing I really want to be careful with is force almost people to make it a part of a larger engagement. If it's just a part that is out there and that's the only thing they're doing with it, I think you're going to do more damage than actually good. And I think that is something that Microsoft has to be very worried about towards their partners as well, is enable your partners, force your partners, train your partners, whatever you want to call it, to really structure a full plan around it. And they have the user adoption framework now. Maybe also come up with a training framework where that is fully embedded into from the portal to all the different platforms they might have. So that would be my advice towards how to integrate and how to use that.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with Jethro there. So I think the key element is the word custom. You can install that thing, it looks like a pretty portal when you install it first of all, but it's not about your company. And it's only really going to chime to your users when you make it, link it in with your company and your company strategy and your applications. So you need to take what's there as a great framework of updating content about these products and turn it into something meaningful to your organization. Now link it in with your company strategy, your company's values, your company's goals, and then the technology comes with that. You can't convince people to use technology. You can convince people to work in a different way because your business wants to work in that way and the technology supports it. One thing I was a little surprised about is that it's very product centric out of the box. So I think that's, you can reorganize that, and I think turning it into more scenario based along with the product, I think you need both aspects. Different people work in different ways. But focus it on giving real stories. Talk about, we've talked in the past about having effective meetings or organising yourself. Those sorts of subjects. And you can then pull together the bits of subject from the different products into one lesson plan that goes with that. The other bit I'd say is that make it a part of a journey. So, the SharePoint portal click and watch videos is one user experience. Some people still want to have a download that they might print off as a quick start guide, but also link it through into learning communities maybe on Yammer or in Teams, so we can go and have that kind of conversation. And if you can link it even further through into physical presence inside your building. I worked for a company before, we had a brand around all of our learning. It's called, is connecting. And then, there's the connecting portal, the connecting community, the connecting bar. We could go and actually speak to people. And linking them all together, is a kind of a virtuous circle of making it all make sense. And also, as per Jethro, it's only coming with some of the Office 365 products. Your users won't really understand what is and isn't Office 365. If your room booking system is not Exchange and Outlook, it's Deco or something else, include that content as well, because people will like this to be a single place where all the content exists.
Well, obviously a load of great points have come before me, and I almost have the unenviable task of trying to get a word out, but also trying to kind of round up on some of the things that's come before me. But we're sat in a space, a wooden space made from trees. It's taken many, many tools to kind of put this thing together, and I see this as being just one tiny tool in an arsenal. I also see this as V1 of something. I think actually this is almost a temporary solution, because Microsoft can do a whole lot better on what they can do. There's also there's things already in the product stack around the tell me features, which you get in the Office products as well. And actually, personally, I would prefer to have seen the custom learning portal be surfacing through those planes, because it's in the context where people are actually doing something, rather than they have to go to a destination to do it instead. So I hope it really is just V1. It's a stepping stone to getting way forward. It's one of those tools. And having also the bitterness of just buying a third-party custom learning portal that I've just dropped into SharePoint, I can see how actually something like this coming out for free might be a bit of a jarring experience for people. But I think it's got a place. It's got a lot of the product materials. It's got a lot of the features. Yes, you can drop into SharePoint really quickly because it's patterns and practice. Click, 10 minutes, go get a cup of coffee, it should be done and deployed. You've got a web part, you can drop it into the right places. But I think you do need that broader suite of tools with you, because you can't build a space like this with just one chisel. It ain't going to work.
I think great thoughts by the group, and I am so pleased that I get to go last because my word is final. So really, I think the custom learning portal is that beginning step. We've heard several say that already. This is a wonderful feature, and the best feature of it all is content that is updated without you having to manually doing that. Now, that's wonderful, and it's been said a couple times that it's product focused, and that is true. I think scenario focus, or having a scenario focus or aspects to it, is going to be beneficial for a lot of organizations. And so I, again, would concur to say investigate that. But remember that just like every other SharePoint site or any other type of content that you might have, it's going to become stale. Even if someone is updating the content, but the layouts and any customized learning that you provide for your other systems, maybe you do some video, which I would highly advise for your organization. It's going to become stale. This product is being the products in the Microsoft 365 sphere are being updated constantly, and you may do a video that covers some wonderful feature, and then 3 weeks later it's totally changed. Well, you have to update that if the confidence of your users goes down because the content you're providing is not relevant anymore, then you're going to lose that focus from them. Another kind of downside, or maybe something you need to pay attention to this, is it is not a learning management system. You're not going to be able to track who are looking at your pages, reading the content, viewing your videos or the videos on your site. So keep that in mind. They're not tracking that, and you need to make sure that maybe you have some quizzes or forms or something that people fill out after viewing the content so that you can kind of get a little bit of an understanding of how people are using it. The one other thing I wanted to mention is it is a part of what others have said. It is a part of this bigger idea of providing content for your users to learn. And one aspect is that ability to, when I am in context, I want to know what's going on and not have to go to a destination, as it was mentioned earlier. So there are organizations that do this, third-party products that are add-ons that provide this kind of training. But you could potentially use this learning portal or other resources. We all have talked about the learning portal here, but whatever learning you're using, tools that you're using to educate your users or provide resources, think about providing some sort of contextual help whether that's just links in various places, making sure that they can try, you can try to get them to that content without having to be, oh wait, there's a site that I have to go to learn about all that. So.
Yeah, look, I think that all the thoughts that have been shared are good. They're bringing together, okay, we've talked about the custom learning portal and how we do need to make it our own. And that's, think of the word custom. We're thinking of, do get to basics, make sure that you're addressing people and not tools. Look, the thing about the portal I like is that it is malleable. It is something that you can customize. It is based on SharePoint. And bringing in this content in that already exists, I want to start there. The product is changing so frequently. In little steps, little things I know, but so frequently that how we expect it to keep up with those resources? We can't. So we do need to rely on a base level. Microsoft has definitely stepped up their game with creating these resources, making them easier to consume. But where it comes to putting it into scenarios, what I like about the product is that you can, if you know SharePoint, you know how to create a page, and that has become a lot easier, you can embed a certain playlist with certain things that will give you the base skills of how do I use a calendar, how do I book an appointment, but you wrap your own story around that. And you might, as someone said earlier, record a video, put it in a stream, embed it there. Now, it is a tool, it's not the full story. The other side I like to this is that we can bring in the possibility of attaching user groups, recording online meetings and presentations and making them not just a portal to go and see static resources, but people that you recognize. And as people like we are on this table here go around and share their stories about how things are being used, you can take their content and put it in the context of where that fits alongside the appropriate page. So there's a lot of good uses around how we can think of this. It is early stages yet, whether we can put it into a Teams tab and bring this content in. But I want to open up the floor to start to talk about learning resources in general and how that might sort of fix in. I know that there was a lot of eyes lighting up as we were talking and being inspired by what others were saying. So we'll do that. We'll open it up to just open discussion. Look, I wanted to hear about some of the ways you've been trying to put learning resources together before we had the custom learning portal. Simon's organisation has installed a third-party product, uses SharePoint. It's going to do a few things that probably the custom learning portal can't do yet. Has anyone else tried to install a portal or created their own portals?
Well, I'm using a system called Quick Help, which is run by a company called Brainstorm. And theirs actually can connect to the Office graph and match usage data against learning. And it's a very good system. You can actually upload your own content into it, create your own skill paths, user journeys, those kind of things. So it's very, very good. But the reality is that the tool without it, and I've tried this with a few customers where I basically just signed them up for a trial, fully knowing that it wasn't going to work, and just said, hey, what do you think? And it kind of proved the point where they just went, yeah, we invited a few more people, and they didn't really take it off. They didn't understand. There was just some content, asking some questions, and away it went. So there was just no context given as to what tools they had and those kind of things. And I think that whether it's you pay for a third-party solution as you've done that's in-house or you get an external solution, there needs to be the context, I think, which was actually your point about tell me. But I think also your point earlier about user personas. Are you honestly going to get an executive to ever sit down and watch training videos? No, you're going to pay a trainer probably $2,000 for half a day to come in and do 2 one-hour workshops with those executives. Same for people out in the field. You're going to say, hey, everybody, stop earning money for the business. Come in and attend this training session or watch this content. So it's got to be balanced. It doesn't matter what the tool is. I think that's what we've already said.
And every company is going to be different. And I think Stephen said it really well, that some people will want a printed quick reference card of some kind. Other people want to watch a 2.5-minute video on stream. And that's it. They just want to be able to see the screen and have somebody talking to it. Every company that I go to, it's amazing how different the users are in what they want. Some companies, you'll start up a user group meeting and you have to work so hard to get 50 people to show up, and they'll only show up in person. I've gone to other companies where the user group started off in the very first meeting, there were 130 people there. 130 people. But they all want to attend remotely via Skype for Business, and nobody wants to sit in the room, and they all want to ask questions over chat. What's the difference? 10 minutes away, similar market, similar industry, totally different culture and climate at the company. And that culture and climate plays such a key role in something like this. You have to figure out who you can tap into and who your target audience is. Because even if you want to try and capture stats, are you going to assume that 100% of your users are going to use something like this? No, you have to take a look at when we, my company, when we rolled out Yammer, we took a look at, okay, here's the entire company, here's the segment of the company that we think is our target market for Yammer. We're going to measure our adoption against that metric of the population, not against the whole population, because we didn't think the whole population would adopt. So I think it's key to make sure you're framing it up.
Well, and you're going to have to do you have talked about that on several occasions where you have to have that subgroup of how are you going to pilot this. And I think that's how you have to address any learning resources. It's not just that one that complains all the time about, I don't know how to do this. Yes, that may be a target user, but there's other users that don't complain very much, and maybe they go out and find their own resources or just do it the wrong way. So, having a pilot group of this as well. But I don't want it to, I think though, a lot of people take that as an excuse or maybe it's the way it happens, and they stall enabling their users with learning resources because they're planning too much. If you're planning and planning and planning, that's great, but what's happening while that's happening is people are getting lost. So I think maybe take a phased approach to this and get something, do a little planning. I'm not saying just throw it out there and do nothing. Do a little planning, get it out there, and then start doing phases. But this brings up the point that you're going to have someone responsible for this. And it's not going to be, please don't make it to where it is any sort of learning resource that you're trying to centralize. Or it can't be something that, oh, by the way, I forgot I need to do this. It's got to be part of the job. It can't be something they just remember to do every once in a while.
Can I ask what part does community play and learning together play alongside?
Well, and that's the one thing I was just thinking about was having admin content about shows and stuff like that when you're adding it in.
Before you answer, and it's just one thing I want to add, is it's not even an answer to your question. One thing that we have to be very careful, because I think sometimes we hear the terms used interchangeable and they're not. User training is not adoption, right? It's not because they know how to do something that they're going to be doing it, right? So I see a lot of people, and the same with change management. It's like change management, user adoption, user training. Let's throw it all in one bowl and pick one out, and that's the one we're going to use. For me, and I think everybody agrees here, I just want to make sure that we're also within this discussion that we're very careful about, especially for the audience, is like training is just getting people to understand, to know how to do something. Why they're doing it, or what the benefit is for them, or why they should be doing it is something completely different.
That's a really huge point, because you can look at things like Planner, but it's how do I use Planner, how do we use Planner? So just being shown how to create cards and buckets and checklists and all those kind of things is useless unless if Sarah works a different way, if you Jethro work a different way, if we all work differently, there's no point. So we need to learn together.
So I think. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Can't tell the Tracy shirts.
If I can add to that, and Jethro started a bit of my thunder there, but that's exactly what I was going to say as well. And I don't know, let's just incorrectly use the 80-20 rule, but the technical skill is really only a small part. If I had to take teams, and I keep on saying this, if I have to take teams, showing someone how to create a channel, it's this small. Telling people what naming conventions to use and when too many channels are too much. So that's a governance. It's a business governance and an IT governance thing, and that's company personal. That's where we should start. And people don't put that effort in. They think Microsoft must just give them all the guidelines and they must know everything, and then they sit back, and then we have over-adoption, because that exists, people. You have over-adoption of teams or channels or something. So please, I say 20% is the technical skill, 80% is that culture, governance, and all of those things. When, why, what, how, why, what's in it for me.
Can I build on that real quickly, though, just quickly like that? I think one thing that would help drive the adoption and the inclusion in the training, which I love how you separated those, And one benefit of this learning portal would be the accessibility, right? So now in today's world, we're all focused on, or we should be, if we're not, we should be focused on inclusion and accessibility and broadening our reach. And so while it might be easy to point out some flaws in this first version portal, I think by piggybacking on the work that Microsoft is doing in inclusion and accessibility, we can take advantage of that, right, and use it to our advantage. And so I just wanted to point that out at the same time you were talking about adoption and the difference, and it's great stuff. Thank you.
So I think back to your point, Darrell, the training portal it's one-way content. It's lessons that you sit and watch. However good it is, it's never going to have answered every question that every person has got. You know, there's always going to be questions. There's always going to be, you know, maybe to get inspired and have a go at it and then get stuck or want to extend somewhere else. So you need to have the next place for them to go. Now, having a community is a really great, effective way of doing that. If you can stoke and culture that, you probably need to inject some skill to start that with. You can't just sort of just leave it and say, ask the question and someone will answer it. But it's, in my experience, because I used to work for a large organisation, it takes relatively little, you know, physical resource to put into that to actually start it happening. So we had a company of 7,000 users. We had one person who did that role, and it was hugely effective. It made a huge change to the business. You didn't take that one role away. You just have people all not knowing how to do stuff.
And I think one of the points. Sorry, Sam, go ahead. That's right. I just wanted to pick up on the stats bit, which came a bit earlier, right? So we're not Netflix, right? So views matter to Netflix. People watch stuff, they get a return on investment. Whereas on learning media, the return on investment is any value that it creates by someone works out how to do something. So that's where that button is. That's what it means, that's what it does. So I think what it, great, it provides content, there's no stats, because actually you need to be looking at those sources of information differently and getting those stories of success, and that's what helps build it up. And everyone's learning style is different, right? And so this is going to tick a few people's boxes. One reason why we went third party was we recognise that people's learning styles are different, their learning needs are different. So I want to learn how to click here, click there, right? There's a group of people that they learn that once and it's done and it's brilliant for them. Others, need to be taken on a story or a journey, go through the different steps and they flow and they understand the context of putting it together. So you need another set of assets to bring that thing together. And then this is why you can kind of pick and choose. And because it's in SharePoint, you can provide those different journeys, because you can create pages which are diverse and inclusive, because it's building upon the SharePoint framework. That's the way SharePoint pages are built. So you're going to get screen reader. It's all going to work beautifully out of the box. So that's what I really wanted to bring to it.
Yeah, let's make it real concrete, right? Like what Simon was saying about the whole journey, there's actually a term where in education, we're going to use learning paths, right? Here's where people start, and people start in different positions, different base knowledge, all that stuff. Digital literacy is brought up a few times during this conference as well, and in this conversation. Where do they need to end up? That's actually the journey that Simon also is talking about. Understanding where the different steps are and how you need to get there and how do you qualify if they're actually there or not. That's a thing that most people do not understand. Why? Because it's something that needs to be trained. People who are in education, people who are teachers, people who are in real user adoption understand that. And that's where I think we're going back to the portal itself. I think Microsoft there has an opportunity, right, to really go with MVPs and people who understand that process to say, like, okay, how do we turn this into a learning path? How do we make an example out of that? How do we get people from A to A+1? How do we qualify them? Do we an assessment? Do we use forums? Whatever the tooling is, get them that. And that journey, if we can qualify it, if we can identify it and build it, that is for people who do not have that educational background. Really is going to open a lot of eyes and say, like, oh crap, just said that was C word on recording.
Oh my goodness,
oh my
crap.
Well,
I think one thing is that I think this is a potentially contentious point, especially given there's Microsoft people in the room. I don't know, you're not field sellers, so you're not remunerated, right? Is there's a massive push to consume, which is the Microsoft vernacular. The customer-friendly vernacular is adopt. And the thing is, we haven't really changed the way we work outside of people like us. For 20 plus years, people are still using File Manager from Windows 3.1. It's just called File Explorer on Windows 10. They're still using Outlook 97. It's just called Outlook 2016 or 2019 now. So people are still working the same way. So we have this rush at the moment of drive as much adoption. Now this goes against my core belief that I've been doing for the last 10 years working with these technologies. The thing is we have like the waiter experience we had last night where he basically just walked past and said, hey, you guys okay? And then just kept walking. He didn't stop to listen to us to see how we're doing. So we have I see so many plans for organizations like, we're going to deploy this, then this, then this, then this, then this. Great, I get it. You're driving consumption because you've probably got a customer success manager pushing on you because someone's bonus is tied to it, those kind of things. And I'm not saying don't do these things. I'm just saying slow down, make sure the users are getting value out of it. Digital transformation won't happen overnight. Modern workplace won't happen overnight, whatever term. It's do something, measure, look back, adjust, tweak. And it's not just about the learning, it's also about, did we do it right? We don't have to roll out Planner to everybody in one go. Then make sure the training's available. We need to say, okay, we did it over here. What worked? What didn't work? What can we learn from that? And I think,
to realize,
absolutely, lots of
to
pilots.
realize that you have to inject so much energy to support an outcome, like what Simon was saying, where it isn't about once the users know how to do something, it's what is the business goal, what is the value to the business, and are they leveraging the technology to deliver on that value? And it's not a do this one thing and do this one thing and this one thing, and when you have 1 + 1 + 1 equals I have business value. And I think all too often executives at companies are saying, well, go out and do this thing, run this event, and then tell me what your conversion rate was on people adopting Office 365, and then tell me what the business value, and it just doesn't work that way, because it's it's stimulus in and then results out, but it's not a direct path.
Well, and any sort of learning resources, I think, we're talking about learning versus the adoption. I see these as helping us elevate the organization to a level to where we know, okay? Not, adoption is different, right? But at least elevating users to the point where those that have actually consumed the content are at a level to where they know how to use it, and then they can apply their business knowledge, what they do in their job, to that knowledge to then talk about, in their mind, figure out adoption. I think that is key to understanding how to use this content. And one thing that I don't know that I mentioned earlier, but making sure that this is not a solely IT-driven thing, because the business looks at IT for resources to help them learn, but IT doesn't often know exactly how the business works and what they're doing from day to day and how they might be able to use it. So IT needs to be asking more questions rather than telling. And then they can learn how to then provide some resources, but then enable the business to help mold those resources by being involved.
If I can add a last thing, because you said consumption and adoption, and I mean I've been a bit tricky about that, the whole consumption thing, is that if we do things for the right reasons, the right things follow. So if we start focusing on empowering people, I can promise you, if that's your only focus is to empower someone to do what they need to do every day and to do it better and to be better than they were yesterday and to feel good about themselves, I promise you consumption will follow, adoption will follow, money savings will follow.
But if all you do is follow consumption,
if you do that, if you empower people, your line will always be straight, you'll always do the right thing, you'll always be helping people. We're so doing it the wrong way around.
And I think that builds on Daniel's point, is this is not an IT tool.
No.
This is a people tool. It should be driven by people in the business, not by IT doing the thrust and information portal or training portal.
and it's not about a short-term lift, it's about the long-term empowerment.
All right.
That was great.
Yeah, no, look, we'll just wrap it up there. I know there's a lot more, but hopefully we've helped to start a conversation and inspire you and to think about how you're going to readdress your custom learning approach to involve your community, to involve your business, and make it a full organisational approach. Thanks to everyone who came along, and thanks for Microsoft for making this room available. And we look forward to hearing your comments and hearing your stories too. Feel free to get in touch with regarding 365. You know where to find us. Bye for now.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
I don't know if people always thank